I'm Janice. Standing in the middle of my state-of-the-art research campus, I can't help but let my mind wander back to the time when everything was so different. The walls around me are filled with accolades, but the most precious one is the Nobel Prize sitting proudly on my desk. 6 months ago, I was in the press conference room buzzing with reporters from every significant news outlet. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw my family arriving. Their expressions were a mix of shock and disbelief, as if they were entering an alternate reality. My dad, Dr. Edward Thompson, a once celebrated immunologist with a Nobel Prize on his resume, entered first. His old Nobel pin seemed like a relic from a bygone era, and he reflexively touched it as if seeking reassurance. My mother, Mrs. Emily Thompson, was holding her designer handbag so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her days of flaunting her social status in the scientific community were about to end. And then there was my sister, Dr. Andrea Thompson, the director of one of the largest and most well-funded cancer research centers in the country. Her research director badge looked so insignificant in the face of the breakthrough I was about to announce. I took the podium, a place my dad had dreamed of reclaiming since his own Nobel win decades ago. Today marks a new chapter in medical science, I declared, and the screens behind me lit up with our treatment data. Dad's face tightened as he recognized the research he'd dismissed as amateurish years ago. Our family has always been deeply involved in the scientific community. My dad, Edward, won the Nobel Prize in Immunology when he was in his 40s. He was the pride of our family, and his name carried a lot of weight in the scientific world. Mom, Emily, was more of a socialite in the scientific circles. She loved to brag about our family's achievements, especially Andrea's. Andrea, 5 years older than me, had followed in Dad's footsteps and had built a highly funded research center on the West Coast. I, on the other hand, had always been different. I was more interested in finding practical solutions to real-world problems. I didn't care much about the institutional prestige that my family glorified. So, I set up my own little lab in an old, converted warehouse. It was far from glamorous, but it was my haven, a place where I could conduct experiments without the constraints of a big institution. The annual Thompson family dinner at the exclusive Ocean View Manor was a showcase of our family's scientific prestige. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over the table, and white-gloved waiters served gourmet dishes that cost more than my monthly lab budget. Andrea was adjusting her research director badge, puffing up with pride. Dad was touching his Nobel medallion pin, a constant reminder of his past glory. I was checking my phone when another message from my research team lit up the screen. The next day's announcement was going to change the face of oncology. But at that moment, I let them enjoy their sense of superiority. Still working in that tiny lab, Janice? Andrea's voice dripped with false concern. I put my phone away, thinking about the revolutionary cancer treatment that was in the final stages of clinical trials. The research is going well, I replied calmly. Research? Mom said, adjusting her designer glasses. Darling, you could have had a position at Harvard. Your sister runs a multi-million-dollar research center, and your father is a Nobel laureate. And you're stuck in a basement playing with test tubes. Actually, I'm developing new treatment protocols, I corrected her, glancing at my watch. There were only 16 hours until the Nobel Committee's announcement. Andrea let out a laugh, and her diamond earrings sparkled in the light. Protocols? Real research happens in top-tier institutions. When was the last time you even published a paper? Last month, actually, I said. They didn't need to know that it was under a pseudonym to protect our breakthrough. A real journal, not some open-access publication, Andrea pressed. I checked my watch again. The final trial results had been certified at midnight. Our work speaks for itself, I stated firmly. Of course it does, dear, Mom said with a practiced patience. But you had so much potential. Andrea's department has a budget of $150 million, and at your age, I was on the boards of 4 major research institutions. And you're still running experiments in an old warehouse. Dad adjusted his Nobel pin. The Thompson name means something in science. For generations of groundbreaking research, and you're wasting it on whatever you're doing. What we're doing is saving lives, I replied quietly, thinking of the patients who had already been cured by our treatment. Lives? Andrea scoffed. My department saves lives every day. Real research, real trials, real results. How many patients have you treated? Just then, my phone buzzed with another message from Stockholm. Everything was ready. Andrea continued, you know, there's a junior researcher position open in my lab. Entry level, of course, but at least it's real science. Thank you, but I'm happy with my current work, I said, looking at the time. The announcement was just 3 hours away. Satisfied? Dad's voice boomed across the table. Thompsons aren't satisfied with mediocrity. We advance science, we make breakthroughs. We don't waste time on small-scale experiments. The restaurant manager approached our table nervously. Dr. Thompson, there's an urgent call from Stockholm. Tell them I'll call back, Dad said dismissively. We're discussing Janice's career choices. Actually, sir, they're asking for Dr. Janice Thompson, the manager said. The table fell silent. There must be a mistake, Andrea said quickly. Janice doesn't deal with the Nobel Committee. She runs a small lab. I stood up slowly, smoothing my simple dress. Actually, I deal with them quite often, especially since our cancer treatment showed a 100% success rate in clinical trials. Treatment? What? Dad's medical journal slipped from his hands. At that moment, the restaurant's TV came alive with breaking news. Revolutionary cancer cure earns youngest Nobel laureate $18 million prize. While you were all focused on institutional prestige, we were revolutionizing cancer treatment, I said as I gathered my things. That little lab you dismissed is now the most advanced research facility in the world. But you work in a warehouse, Andrea whispered. Yes, and we developed a cure that has ended cancer as we know it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a press conference to prepare for. Stockholm is waiting. Back in the press conference room, I continued my presentation. Our breakthrough isn't just another treatment. It's a complete paradigm shift in how we approach cancer. I showed the next slide, which compared traditional treatments with our new protocol. The survival rates were unprecedented. We've achieved a 100% cure rate across all trial groups, I stated, watching Andrea's scientific confidence crumble. More importantly, the treatment is simple, affordable, and can be administered anywhere. Mom's perfectly manicured hands trembled. She had bragged so many times about Andrea's exclusive research center. Furthermore, we're making the treatment protocol open source. Every hospital, every clinic around the world will have access to it, I announced. Dad touched his Nobel pin reflexively. He knew what this meant. The traditional approach of expensive institutionalized treatment is obsolete. We've democratized the cure, I said. Andrea stammered, but major institutions have always had a monopoly on breakthrough research. That ends today. Our data shows that our little lab has achieved better results than all major cancer centers combined, I replied. The reporters and the live stream audience nodded in understanding. I knew there would be many questions. Dad raised his hand slowly, his scientific authority visibly diminishing. The research methodology is fully documented. Every step, every trial, every result has been verified by independent labs worldwide, I cut in. Andrea's face flushed. You can't possibly have achieved this in a warehouse. You're just a scientist who cured cancer, I corrected her. The treatment works, Andrea. It works better than anything your $150 million lab has ever produced. Mom finally found her voice. But the Thompson research legacy will be stronger than ever. Yes, but not in the way you imagined. Our legacy will be measured by the lives we've saved, all lives, not just those who can afford expensive treatments, I assured her. The presentation went on for another hour. I explained the treatment protocol, the mechanism of action, and the implementation strategy. With each detail, I watched my family's perception of science and my work shatter. After the conference, Andrea lingered, staring at the survival rate data. These numbers. They're real, she said. Very real, I replied as I gathered my notes. That little lab you mocked has changed medical history. And your research center will need to adapt. Dad approached next, still touching his pin. Major institutions have always led medical research. Major institutions have made us focus on profitable treatments and ignore simpler solutions. That ends now, I corrected him. We're still respected scientists, he protested weakly. And I'm still working in what was once a warehouse, but it just produced the biggest breakthrough since penicillin. Interesting, isn't it? I said. Mom tried one last time. The scientific community is already implementing our protocol. Those experiments you ridiculed have revolutionized cancer treatment. Every major hospital is preparing to use our method, I finished. The press room slowly emptied, leaving my family standing in front of the data screens. Their world of prestigious research had been turned upside down by the daughter they'd dismissed as a mere test tube scientist. The Nobel ceremony is next week in Stockholm. Don't be late, I said as I headed towards the door. Dad, you might want to update your pin. The new ones say, Thompson Cancer Cure Team. I'll have one sent to your office. 6 months have passed since then. My lab has now become a sprawling research campus, filled with the world's most innovative research teams. My phone buzzed again. It was another message from Andrea, her 8th this week. But it could wait. Dr. Maria, my lead researcher, appeared on the smart glass. The global implementation data is in. Cancer mortality rates have dropped 97% in participating countries. I nodded, looking at the holographic statistics floating in front of me. Traditional cancer centers were becoming obsolete. The so-called amateur work had proven that breakthrough science didn't need a fancy address. Also, your father's research institute has requested another meeting about collaboration, Maria added. Of course, they have, I said. Since the Nobel announcement, Dad had been trying hard to align his work with our methodology. His prestigious facilities now seemed outdated compared to our innovative approach. Schedule them for next month. After our announcement of the autoimmune breakthrough, the door opened, and Mom walked in, wearing her newly acquired scientific advisory board outfit. Janice, darling, these results are extraordinary. Just the beginning, I replied, manipulating a molecular model of our next potential cure. Wait until you see what's coming. She looked at the teams working below with our new methods. We never understood what you were building, did we? No, you cared more about prestige than the future of medicine, I said. Your sister. Andrea's center is struggling, Mom hesitated. Change is hard. But she's welcome to join our fellowship, I replied. Just then, the intercom buzzed. Dr. Janice Thompson, you're ready for your keynote. In the hall, my family was sitting with global leaders. Andrea was wearing a visitor's badge, and Dad was still clutching his old Nobel pin. Let's begin, I said, activating the hologram. Topic: democratizing medical breakthroughs. Data filled the room, proof of our success. Old hierarchies had held us back, but by sharing knowledge freely, we achieved what the big institutions couldn't. Andrea stopped writing as her achievements paled in comparison to ours. Dad's hands shook as the numbers showed the failure of traditional methods. Next quarter, we're launching the Global Research Initiative. Free access to our methods for any lab, I announced. Mom's hands visibly tightened on her handbag. She had once mocked my simple work. Questions? I asked. There was silence at first, and then Andrea raised her hand. Yes, Dr. Janice. Your methods. Could you teach me? I want to learn. I saw real curiosity in her eyes. Of course. Science means sharing, collaborating, and saving lives. My team smiled at the irony. Afterward, Dad stayed behind. Janice, your work is saving more lives than my entire career ever did. That's why it's free, I said. Science isn't about prestige, it's about impact. Later in my office, I watched as the researchers were busy building the next big breakthrough. My phone lit up with a news headline, Thompson Protocol transforms global healthcare. I smiled, remembering Andrea's old sneer. We had changed everything, and we were just getting started.